Hello, I'm Charlotte Surrey, one of the directors at the Green Register, and today I'm having a chat with our founder, Lucy Pedler, who started the Green Register back in 2000. And Lucy, what inspired you to start the Green Register?
That is a very good question. I was a practicing architect and I'd taken a sort of side step in my profession to work at the UK's first environmental building centre, and there I was the seminar coordinator. I would run the seminars both for in-house events and also go out a lot to architects and so on. And so one of the reasons I decided to start the Green Register was when I went out to talk to architects and other construction professionals, there was a real need for independent information. They could get lots of free lunches and CPDs from manufacturers and suppliers, but they weren't really getting unbiased information. So one of the motivations was to provide independent information on sustainable construction. The second was that at the centre we had a lot of clients coming in and they were really on board with building sustainably. But back in 2000, there really weren't that many contractors and architects and engineers that could deliver. So they'd come into the centre, we'd have this fantastic, tour and talk about their project, and they'd go out again and they just couldn't find construction professionals that would be A, committed to it, and B, have the experience. So that second idea was to have a register of people who did have this experience. And the third was that back in 2000 it was quite an isolating experience being in sustainable construction, and I wanted to have a kind of network support group for people who could share ideas and buoy each other up and learn from each other's experience and so on. So there were sort of three different reasons for starting it all.
And who did you collaborate with to start the Green Register?
So I lived in Southwark, and I approached Southwark Council, and there was a guy called Bob Jones in building control, and I basically had to sort of pitch the idea to him, and he actually gave us some startup money, which was £5,000, which was quite a lot in 2000. We also got a lot of support from Southwark Energy Agency, which again was in Southwark, and they were doing a lot of work in trying to convert people from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And I would actually like to mention my boss, Richard Handyside, who's no longer with us, but he was the director of Construction Resources, the Environmental Building Centre, and he allowed us to run the first seminars of the Green Register within Construction Resources. So we had some really wonderful support against what felt like a bit of a hard sell to a lot of people in the construction industry.
Mm. And what were the biggest challenges in starting and sustaining the Green Register?
Some of them still exist. The construction industry is really mired in inertia. People don't want change, and neither are they either motivated by or encouraged, or there's no sort of driver to change. Poor building standards are not pulled up for their shoddy standards, and we've got a system in the UK where you've got building control run by local authorities, but you also have the private AIs. They are competing for work with building control, and so actually what you get is a competitive environment, and there's a sort of race to the bottom in terms of meeting building regs. So poor quality building is getting through. So I think those were the two main issues, is that nobody really wanted to change. They couldn't see that nobody was pulling them up for poor building. Why would you?
How have you moved past these kind of challenges?
So much has come from the reaction from the Green Register members. So as soon as we started putting on these courses and training, we got such a positive response. It felt like we were on the right track. We knew we were on the right track. The direction of travel was towards sustainable building, even though it's going to be very slow. But every time we ran a course, we got such positive feedback from all the attendees that we knew we had to keep going. Plus, bloody determination on my part, I think.
It served you well. And what was the first training course?
Well, that was actually in construction resources. So we felt that we wanted to exclude. This is probably not a very fair way of saying. We wanted to exclude bandwagon jumpers. We didn't want people just to be able to pay a fee and become a Green Register member and not really demonstrate any commitment to it. So we had a prerequisite course that they had to go on, and at the time it was called Ecological Building and Services, and a few years later we changed it into Sustainable Building and Services. A 2-day course held at Construction Resources, and it covered what we thought were all the essential issues, which is energy, water, waste, materials, and also the social issues around sustainable construction. So, so sustainable construction isn't only about environmental issues, it's also about equality and making sure that people involved in the whole process and using the buildings afterwards, and the people who are gathering the raw materials to make them, all of those people have some kind of fair treatment. So we've covered all of those issues, healthy building interiors. So all of those were subjects that we covered in the 2-day course back in 2000. And really that hasn't changed a great deal. Obviously there's been some updates, there's been legislation, there's been changes in practice, but essentially those are all the issues that are still important to consider.
Yeah, those topics are still completely live today, aren't they?
They absolutely are.
I'd say that we're still running training along those lines as well.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't go away.
No, and that's both interesting in terms of there's a kind of universal set of subjects, but also, we haven't yet got everybody to understand those, so we're still working on those subjects.
How have supporters of the Green Register helped to sustain and grow the reach of the organisation?
I think without supporters we wouldn't have survived. It's not a money-making venture to run intentionally low-cost training courses. We intentionally have the bar very low because we want as many people to join and to learn about sustainable construction. And if it wasn't for all of our supporters, we wouldn't have been able to carry on. But we're now an 8-person company, and the kind of support we get is through the members who continue to give us positive feedback about what we're doing. The team at the Green Register, it's a fantastic group of people that work together, and also all the partners at the Green Register. I would like to raise one particular flag for ecological building systems, who've been with us right from the get-go, and not only have they supported us, but they provide amazing training content. They have such good, technically competent trainers, and we've worked with them for years and years and years, and they just do a fantastic job.
And what kind of impact do you think the Green Register has had on the construction industry over the past 25 years?
Well, I think that considering the Green Register has trained thousands and thousands of construction professionals, the biggest impact, well, it's in 2 parts. It's helping the construction professionals to understand the issues, but it's also that they then educate their clients, they educate the building control, educate the planners, all the other stakeholders in the process of building a building. So it feeds out. You get one architect coming in for a course, and they will go back, and often actually they're sponsored by their employer to do the course, and then they go back and they have to kind of tell their colleagues about the course. So I think that's been very rewarding for the Green Register to know that we have influenced thousands of decisions in the construction industry in a positive way.
Yeah, so even if you may have only had a handful of people on the course from that organisation, they've branched out the network. They've influenced their own network.
Absolutely.
And shared that knowledge, which is the important thing. Is one of our key sort of parts of our mission, isn't it?
It is, and it's a very effective way to do. One person comes on a course and they go back and disseminate the information. Yeah. So that's a really, really rewarding. Yeah.
What do you think will be the focus of sustainable construction in the future?
Well, I hope, and I actually think it will, is all going in the right direction. If you look at the legislative changes, apart from the bonfire red tape that a certain government did back in 2010, most of the legislation and standing is going in the right direction. And so as people become more aware, for whatever motivation, there might be people who just want to save on fuel bills, which of course is a big issue now, or they might truly want to reduce the impact of their building. But I think it's all going to be towards that aim of reducing the impact of construction. And there's other countries in the world who've already demonstrated that better buildings, more sustainably built buildings, actually have a higher value. And of course we're not doing it for financial gain, but actually that's another reason somebody might want to do something sustainably, is that they know that they're going to get payback, or that there's a financial reason for doing it, over and above the environmental reasons too.
Yeah.
So I'm very optimistic.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, and I'm just so proud that the Green Register continues, and it's one of the few independent organisations that trains people in the UK, and the feedback we get is just saying we're doing the right thing, we should carry on doing it.
And what would you like to see the Green Register do next?
More of the same. But we've got some very exciting initiatives. We've got a trailer which is retrofit in transit, which is a big change for the Green Register. Normally, we have people coming to us. In COVID, we had a virtual situation of training, but now we can actually go out, and I find this really exciting. We've already been to schools and communities. We're going to go to further education colleges in the future. And if you can't get Mohammed to go to the mountain, you just bring the mountain to Mohammed. And that's a really effective way of doing, for example, in further education colleges where there may be construction courses. That college might not be able to afford to let 30 people out for a day to do some training, but you rock up at 7:30 in the morning or 8 o'clock and you give them a couple of hours training from our amazing trailer. And all of a sudden you've got the builders of the future who've understood about sustainable construction. So really, really excited about that. Also, we've got level 2 retrofit qualification, which is one of the first times the Green Register's got some kind of third-party accredited course, which is amazing. We usually haven't gone for third-party accreditation because it's very expensive to do, but through the retrofit process we've been able to get this level 2 formally certified course, and I think we should continue to do what we do so well, which is independent training to all stakeholders in the construction industry. Building a building isn't just the preserve of one profession, it's all professions. We had a fantastic program called Future Proof where we trained builders and contractors. So the more cross-disciplinary discussion we get, the more likelihood is we'll get a really proper sustainable building future.
And that's a wrap.
Well done.